For this video, I want to share my thoughts on the progressions of training. Um, After training for so long, and it's it's like 31 years now, been training, and noticing just the different motivations and the purpose and why you train, and how you train, and how often you train, and your inspiration. It's different. Like being committed for 5 years, 10 years, 15. The longer it gets, the harder it is. So somebody that's been training for 90 years straight, it's gonna be a lot harder to do that than to train 10 years straight, 20 years straight. The longer you live and you keep it going, the harder it is. And from my reflection, what I see is that to follow is the easiest. So when you have someone to follow, like when people come in and they take classes and they follow me in the training, like I tell them what to do, how to do it, and then also do it myself, and then they basically join in the class. That to me is the easiest part for them because they're just following somebody else. So when people go to the gym and they jump into like a kickboxing class or a yoga class or Pilates class, that's the easiest. The second, after that, what's harder is leading people. So you're the person who's running the class and you're not following, but you're the one who's leading. That requires more discipline, more knowledge, more motivation, because you're responsible for leading others. So that's going to be harder than just following, because now you have to lead. So that's the next level of progression. So when you are a follower for a while, then you might build up to the point when you could start leading, and then now others are following you. You're still feeding off of their energy as well, because it's still a group dynamic. All right, after that, the hardest I would say is training by yourself, where you don't you're not following somebody else and nobody's following you and it's just you. That to me is the hardest. And that, I'm not saying that just training by yourself, but also by yourself in a disciplined form where there's a scientific approach, where you're actually putting yourself on a schedule and you're actually training with consistency, and you're training the right way, and you're training with effort. So there's a scientific approach. So it's basically the leader who is not leading others, but he's leading himself. And that right there is the hardest. If you look at it, sports, and even like something like boxing, like usually these professional boxers, they have a coach. So the coach is helping the boxer um, try to achieve their potential. But imagine the boxer with no coach and it's just him. It's gonna be a lot harder. Even with the basketball team, NBA, there's the basketball team and then there's the coach, head coach, assistant coach, whatever. There's still somebody helping these people. So that right there requires an immense amount of discipline, not just doing it for short term, few months or even a few years, but doing that for a lifetime. It's not an easy feat, especially if you're training very consistent, like every other day, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, 7 times a week, 6 days a week, or say you have hour training sessions, 2 hour training sessions, however long. The more times that you do it per week, the harder it is. The longer the sessions are, the harder that it is. And that right there is what I noticed is is the hardest. And it's not the same as following an exercise video, because when you're at home and you're watching the video and you're following the video, you're essentially a follower at that moment. You're just having you're following a video instead of following a person face to face. That's still the beginning form, or the easiest form of progression. When you're leading yourself and it's just you, no videos, and it's just you, and it's not even going to the gym where there's other people around. You're literally just by yourself. Literally, like, nobody else is around. You might be at your home gym, in your own room, or you might be in the basement, you might be in the garage, you might be outside, but it's just literally just you. That is the hardest, because even the people that go to the gym and they're training around a bunch of strangers or other people, they're still feeding off the energy of others. So that's um, similar to following, or similar to leading, because the leader is the one who's also feeding off the energy of the people following him. So you go to the gym, others might not be following you and what you're doing, but you're still feeding off the energy of the people in the gym. And that's what makes it more motivating, um, more inspiring than just literally by yourself. And those are the different phases of development. Some people are kind of stuck at just the following, and that's just all they do. Like, they never lead other people, and they could never really train themselves. They might follow videos, they might go to the gym and follow other people, um, and the next level, like I said, leading the other people, not a lot of people come into that phase. They just never break through the following stage and go into the leadership phase. Once you get into the leadership phase, um, and you start gaining experience leading other people, you still got to foster that inner discipline within yourself to be able to lead yourself, even if you don't have a group to lead. Um, and that takes a higher level of development and more discipline, um, when you can literally train consistently for many decades, even if no one else is around. Like, you're not even going to the gym and depending on other people to be there, to see what you're doing or give you accolades or whatever. It's just you. And that is the hardest one. And, you know, very few people may get to that point, and they might never get to that point, which is fine, because then they'll find some way to feed off the energy of others. They might be stuck at either phase one, where they're always following. They might be paying for teachers, paying for personal trainers, or, following exercise videos. Or they might go to the next phase, into the leadership phase, where they are leading groups of people, or just one other person or whatever, while they're exercising together. And they just might be stuck at that phase, which is not a bad phase to be stuck at, because that's you have the ability to follow and you have the ability to lead, which is, you know, two great phases that um, you could kind of feed off of either one, because it's almost like imagining the time when there's just no gym. Well, usually there always is a gym that you could go to, where you could feed off the energy of the other people in the gym. But with the challenges of this pandemic, for example, there is just a rare occurrence where the gym just completely shut down and you can't even go there. And but usually there's always, like, normally there's always places where you could go, where you could feed off the energy of others. And that is kind of the you know kind of like the leadership phase, the following phase, kind of like those two phases, where You're kind of depending on other people to feed you energy to keep moving forward. Like the boxer that reaches his potential because he has a coach and others encouraging him, trainers and things of that sort. Um, but the hardest phase of it all is when you can have that discipline to train completely alone, no other people around. And that is definitely the hardest from what I'm seeing. And yeah, you might be, some people do it, maybe, they might do it short term. They might do it for a few weeks or a week or a month. But I'm talking about years and years and years and years. And um, so if you could get to all phases, you're a good follower, you're a good leader, and then you're also somebody who is completely self-disciplined, where you don't need anybody, and then you are still on the path, continuing on the journey. If you could get to all three phases, then that would be the ultimate. But like I said, I think very few people could get to that stage where it's just them. You know, um, because we all appreciate like the energy of others. Like family, friends, and even strangers. You might train with your family, you might train with your friends, and then you train with strangers. Like people are feeding off of each other's energy in different ways. Even when you watch a video and you get inspired by a certain athlete that you see, that is feeding off that person's energy. Even being inspired by Bruce Lee, and watching his movies, reading his books, you are feeding off of his energy to provide inspiration to train. No matter if you're reading his books or you're watching his videos, you're still feeding off his energy. So when you get to the point where you are the one providing that energy, where others are feeding off of you, and you are just alone, and you are the only one, and you're still striving and training and progressing, that is what I've come to realize is the hardest. And that is part of the progression of training and teaching, is teaching the people first, can you be a good follower? Then when you're a good follower, can you be a good leader? When you're a good leader, now can you have self-discipline to not depend on others to follow you? And you don't have to follow others, but you are completely able and capable of guiding yourself. And that's the different levels of progression that I've seen within the journey.